Most men believe that loss of potency after the age of 50 is simply an inevitable part of aging. They think it's just old age catching up with them. That the body begins to slow down. That hormones decrease, and there's not much to do besides accept it or resort to quick fixes. What if I told you that, in most cases, the problem doesn't start with age? In fact, it begins with something much quieter. Something that develops slowly over decades. Something that many men do every day without realizing it. And this detail can directly affect three fundamental things for the functioning of the male body: blood circulation, nerve sensitivity, and the strength of the pelvic floor muscles. Think of the male reproductive system as an irrigation system. When everything is working well, the flow happens naturally. Blood circulates easily, nerves respond quickly, and muscles work in balance. But now imagine what happens when the channels start to become compressed. The flow decreases. The response becomes slower. And what used to happen naturally now requires much more effort. This is exactly the type of change that many men begin to feel as time goes by. And interestingly, the reason is often not what most people imagine. It's not just the hormonal drop. It's not just the age. In fact, there are three silent factors that have a much greater influence than many people realize. The first is reduced circulation in the pelvic region. Over the years, especially in men who spend many hours sitting, blood flow to this area can decrease. And when circulation isn't ideal, several bodily functions begin to be affected. The second factor is the accumulated tension in the pelvic floor muscles. These muscles are responsible for extremely important functions. They participate in urine control. They directly influence blood flow. They are also linked to the body's response during moments of intimacy. The problem is that many men live with these muscles constantly tense, stress, long periods of sitting, lack of movement. All of this contributes to this region remaining contracted for much longer than it should. Now think of a muscle that remains tense all day long. What happens to the circulation around it? It's getting smaller. And when circulation decreases, the nerves also begin to respond more slowly. The third factor involves something that almost no one talks about: nerve compression. Extremely important nerves for male sensitivity pass through the pelvic region. When these nerves are free, they transmit signals easily. But when there is constant pressure in the region, these signals can become weaker. And this can directly affect the body's response. Now here's an important question. If these factors are so common, why does almost no one talk about them? Perhaps because for a long time the subject has only been dealt with in two ways. Or as an inevitable problem of age, or as something that can only be resolved with medication. But there is a third possibility that many people ignore. To work directly on the region where these muscles, nerves, and blood vessels meet. And this is exactly where a specific part of the body comes in that few people know about. A small spot, located in an area that almost never receives attention. But it is directly connected to the circulation and nerves responsible for the male body's response. This point has been known in some medical traditions for centuries. And interestingly, today modern science is beginning to explain why it can have such a strong influence on this region. But before showing you exactly where that point is located, there's something important you need to understand. Many men do something every day that completely blocks the effect of this area of the body. And without realizing it, this habit may be reducing blood flow precisely where it should be most active. And that's what we're going to talk about now. Now that you understand why circulation, nerves, and muscles in the pelvic region are so important, a natural question arises. Is there a simple way to stimulate this area of the body? The answer may lie in a point that most men have never paid attention to. This point is located in a region called perineum. The perineum is the area located between the scrotum and the anus. It's a small region, but extremely important for the functioning of the male body. Nerves, blood vessels, and muscles that form part of the pelvic floor pass through that area. These structures work together to control functions, such as circulation in the genital region, sensitivity, and even urinary control. Now think of something interesting. If this area contains so many important nerves and blood vessels, what happens when it remains tense for too long? In many men, especially after the age of 40 or 50, this region can become constantly compressed. This happens for several reasons. Long periods of sitting, stress, lack of physical activity, even the habit of holding urine for too long. Over the years, this combination can reduce local circulation and increase muscle tension. And when that happens, the body signals begin to change. Some men notice a decrease in sensitivity. Others note that circulation doesn't seem as strong as before. And many simply believe that this is just part of aging. But here's the interesting part. Some ancient medical traditions have observed that gently stimulating this region could help activate circulation and release some of the accumulated muscle tension. Today we know that the perineum is very close to important nerves that participate in the male body's response. When this region receives a mild stimulus, a temporary increase in local circulation may occur. And this can help activate muscles and nerves that were previously understimulated. But there is an important detail. It's not just about pressing a point on the body. There is a correct way to stimulate this region. The intensity needs to be low. Body position matters. And consistency also makes a difference. But before explaining exactly how to perform this technique safely and simply, there's something many men begin to realize after the age of 50, changes in circulation and vitality. Some notice that their body's response is no longer the same. Others notice a drop in energy or increased sensitivity. And they often look for quick solutions. Therefore, in addition to healthy habits and physical activity, some men also seek natural ways to support circulation and male vitality. There are natural nutrients that are being studied for their role in circulation and in supporting men's health. If you'd like to learn about one of these options that many men use as part of their healthcare routine, I've included a link in the description with more information. Now, going back to the point we mentioned, the perineum. There is an extremely simple way to stimulate this area. A technique that takes less than a minute. And when done correctly, it can help activate circulation in that area of the body. But there is a curious detail. Many people perform this technique incorrectly and end up not noticing any effect. So the question is inevitable. Where exactly is this point located? And how do you stimulate this region correctly? That's exactly what we're going to understand now. Now that you know there's an area of the body directly connected to the circulation and nerves of the pelvic region, the most important question is simple. Where exactly is this point located? This point is located in a small region called perineum. The perineum is the area located between the scrotum and the anus. It is a small region, often overlooked. But it functions as a true connection center for important nerves, muscles, and blood vessels. If you gently touch that area, you'll notice a slightly softer spot in the center. This small area is precisely where structures connected to the pelvic floor pass through. Now think of something interesting. The pelvic floor muscles function as a kind of support base for various systems in the male body. They help with urinary control. They participate in circulation in the genital region. They also directly influence the nervous and muscular response during moments of intimacy. But as the years go by, especially in men who spend a lot of time sitting, these muscles can become constantly tense. When a muscle remains contracted for too long, it begins to compress surrounding structures. This includes blood vessels and nerves. And when these structures become compressed, blood flow can decrease and nerve signals can become less efficient. Now an important question arises. If this region is connected to muscles, nerves, and circulation, what happens when it receives a mild and controlled stimulus? What some experts observe is that gentle stimulation in this area can help activate local circulation and stimulate the nerves that pass through there. It's as if you're awakening a region of the body that often goes years without receiving attention. Some ancient medical traditions already use this type of stimulation as part of techniques to improve circulation in the pelvic region. Today we know that this area is located near important nerves that participate in the vascular response of the male body. When these nerves receive mild stimuli, they can help increase local blood flow. But there is an important detail. It's not just about touching on that point. There is a right way to do this. Body position matters. The pressure applied makes a difference. And most importantly, the consistency with which the technique is performed can determine whether it will have any noticeable effect. Some people press too hard. Others stimulate the wrong area. And many simply try it once and give up before their bodies have time to respond. Then another question arises. How do you find that exact spot and apply the technique in a simple and safe way? Because when the technique is done correctly, it takes less than a minute. And it can be easily incorporated into the daily routine. But there's a curious detail that many people don't notice. There is a small mistake that can completely negate the effect of this technique. And if you avoid this mistake, the chance of feeling an improvement in circulation can be much greater. So let's understand now how to do this massage correctly. Now that you understand where this region is located and why it can influence circulation, let's talk about the practical side. The good news is that this technique is extremely simple. It doesn't require any equipment. It requires no physical effort. And it takes less than a minute. But for it to work correctly, it's important to follow a few simple steps. The first step is to locate the correct area. The spot is located in the perineum, in the area between the scrotum and the anus. If you gently touch this area, you will feel a slightly softer spot in the center. This is where many nerves and muscles of the pelvic floor connect. After locating the spot, the next step is to find a comfortable position. You can sit on the edge of a chair with your legs slightly apart. Or you can lie on your back with your knees bent. The important thing is that the position allows easy access to the area, without you having to strain your hand or body. Now comes the most important step. Apply the correct pressure. Use the tip of 1 or 2 fingers and gently press the spot. The pressure should be firm enough to feel the contact, but never painful. A simple way to think about this is to imagine the pressure used to test if a fruit is ripe. You press lightly, feel the consistency, but don't force it. After applying this gentle pressure, begin making small circular motions. Make slow circles for about 30 seconds. Then change the direction of the circles for another 30 seconds. In total, about a minute is enough. Another option is to apply light pressure for a few seconds and then relax. Press and hold for 5 seconds. Relax for 5 seconds. And repeat the movement a few times. Consistency is more important than intensity. 1 minute a day is usually more helpful than trying to do the technique for several minutes only once a week. Now a question arises that many people ask. Is there a better time of day to do this technique? Some men prefer the morning, when the body naturally has higher hormone levels. Others prefer the evening, when the body is more relaxed. In practice, the best schedule is the one you can maintain regularly. Creating a small daily habit usually yields more consistent results than performing the technique occasionally. Some people also like to use a little natural oil to make finger movement easier. Natural oils can help reduce friction and make movement more comfortable, but that's not mandatory. The most important thing is that the pressure is light and that the movement is done calmly. Now, there's a detail that many people ignore when they start applying this technique. And this detail can greatly influence the results. Some men perform the massage correctly, but continue to maintain habits that completely block circulation in the pelvic region. And when that happens, the effect of the technique may be much smaller than it could be. Then an important question arises. What habits might be reducing circulation in this area without many men realizing it? That's exactly what we're going to talk about now. Now, there's an important detail that many men don't realize when they start applying this technique. They perform the massage correctly. They find the right spot. They apply gentle pressure. But even so, they say they didn't feel much of a difference, and there's almost always a reason for that. Massage can help stimulate local circulation, but it cannot compensate for habits that are blocking this blood flow every day. And one of the biggest problems is something extremely common in modern life: sitting for many hours. Consider the routine of many men after the age of 50. Hours spent sitting at work, time in the car, time spent watching television, time spent using a cell phone or computer. When the body remains seated for very long periods, circulation in the pelvic region can decrease. Over the years, this can increase pressure on the blood vessels and nerves in the area. And when this area remains compressed for too long, blood flow can become less efficient. Now think about something important. If circulation is one of the keys to male vitality, what happens when it remains reduced for long periods every day? This is one of the reasons why many experts recommend small changes in routine. Get up from your chair a few times throughout the day, walk for a few minutes, stretch the hip and leg area. These small movements help to reactivate circulation. Another important factor is controlling body weight. Excess abdominal fat can increase pressure on blood vessels and alter the body's hormonal balance. This can also affect circulation in the pelvic region. And there is a third point that many men ignore: muscle tension caused by stress. When the body remains in a constant state of tension, various muscles end up being contracted for longer than they should be. This includes the pelvic floor muscles. And constantly contracted muscles can reduce blood flow around them. Therefore, when we talk about men's health after 50, the most effective approach almost always involves a set of small habits: daily movement, good circulation, weight control, adequate sleep, and simple stimuli that help activate areas of the body that are often forgotten for years. The massage we're showing you today is just one of those stimuli. It can help to stimulate local circulation and release muscle tension. But when combined with healthy habits, the effect tends to be much greater. Perhaps the most important question isn't just about a specific part of the body. Perhaps it's about how many signals the body sends before many men really start paying attention to their own health. Many men wait until the symptoms become severe before taking action. But the body almost always starts sending signals long before that. And when small changes are made consistently, the impact over time can be much greater than it seems at first. Now I want to ask you a question. Do you think most men start taking care of their health early enough, or only when problems have already started to appear? Write your opinion in the comments. And there is another extremely common habit that can reduce male circulation without many men realizing it. I explained this in another video on this channel. This video is definitely worth watching right now.